Hey there, folks. Welcome to Software Sales Simplified, Move to Success, the weekly podcast for software sales professionals who want to sell better, whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out. Please make us your go-to resource for all the latest on sales strategy, techniques, and what's happening in the world of software. I'm Kevin Donville, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague and good friend, Matt Long. Matt, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Kevin.
And we're joined today by our guest, Peter Kuhn, who's going to be talking to us about his background, the organization he's working with today. But before we do that, Matt and I just want to remind you, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, comment on the channel, and let us know what you think about the sessions that we're holding. If there's anything you'd like us to be talking about in general, so that we can make sure that this is one of your go-to resources on a weekly basis to stay up with the latest and greatest in the world of software sales. So as I said before, we've got our guest, Peter Kuhn. Peter, great to see you, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm great, Kevin. It's really great to meet you. And Matt, good to be on with you. I'm excited to be on the podcast. Excited to talk shop with you guys.
Well, we are very excited to have you here as well. Peter, you and I had a little brief conversation last week in preparation for you coming on. It was an exciting call, and I think I lost track of time 2 or 3 times over the course of that. So I'm very interested in being able to share about who you are, what you do, and some of your philosophies on how to be successful in the world of enterprise software sales. So I've had the privilege of reading about your background. For our listeners, give us a little bit of a background of who you are.
Yeah. I guess I'll start with where I am today. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of a consultancy called Baku. Baku is a group of individuals who have background operating at pre-seed, seed, high growth B2B SaaS companies. Credibility from that was I was very early in sales, first salesperson at a company called Moat that we grew from about 2 million in ARR when I joined it all the way to 100 million in ARR 4 years later and sold to Oracle. But what Baku does is we get in the weeds with early stage founders and we help them work through a lot of the problems of learning how to sell themselves and then building the system of sales that they can teach to other people. And we do the same thing with later stage growth companies as well. So folks that are trying to go from 10 to 30 or from 30 to 100, looking at the systems that can make life simpler for them. And in the background, we're also a technology company. So I have a CTO co-founder, Chris. Guy and Chris are my two partners. We are building an AI product to assist in all of that, to be helpful and make life simpler for folks trying to learn how to sell and communicate with their customers.
So your AI tool that you're bringing to market, are you trying to codify all of your experience and the things you would normally deliver as a service and trying to package that up into like an AI tool for delivery to your customers?
That is a great way to think about it, which is when you hire a VP of sales or you hire somebody to run sales or do sales at your company, what you are effectively doing is making a bet on that person's prior experience. So all the knowledge that they can pattern match in their head. And you're making a bet on their first principles thinking and critical thinking, that they're not just going to, say, hey, I'm going to do it this way at your company because I did it that way in my last company. They're going to be able to get their arms wrapped around what makes sense at this moment in time for your company. So the tool that we've built is primarily for us just to meet our customers where they are, but we're finding that the customers themselves like to use it as well. What was the last thing I said to this customer, or what's the best email follow-up that I can send, or, what's our latest pricing proposal, things like that.
Well, the thing I love about that concept, Peter, is that in your case, you're bringing that from the perspective of a methodology and services that are tried and true because you've walked the walk. There's a lot of folks I've seen that are in the industry right now who are trying to bring tools of that ilk into the marketplace, but they're bringing it without the benefit of having actually experienced that firsthand. And I think that that's an important filter that those folks might be missing. But you are bringing that, and your team's bringing that to the product you're offering. Yes.
I think that's just like great product discipline in general for B2B. One thing I've noticed about the companies that we work with is the folks that put themselves in the shoes of the buyer. So deeply understand their problem and deeply understand the world that they're trying to unlock for them, tend to build much more interesting and much more innovative solutions that are much more interesting and much more fun to talk about than those who necessarily whiteboard and do product strategy in a vacuum where they do top-down planning. And so maybe pivot a little bit to just some of what I think makes a great salesperson or great sales first organization, great sales first organization is deep, deep, deep customer understanding of the actual job that they're trying to accomplish and the actual problem they're trying to solve, which I think most people think they go deep on, but like they're not actually going that deep on it. Doing LinkedIn searches or Google searches is not deep. Literally going to somebody's office and watching them click through a workflow or watching them get limited to whatever they're trying to accomplish or get frustrated, that becomes going deep. So yeah.
Yeah, what do you think is the best way for a new leader when they're coming in to get up to speed? Because I have a background in sort of knowledge management a bit, but that's actually about Kevin back in the day, where we're trying to capture all this collective knowledge, tribal knowledge of the organization. But you go to new sales organization or new companies, and there's nothing. I mean, there's some stuff in Confluence or something, but it's like not very helpful. What approaches have you seen that work well?
I guess it depends on like what you're trying to get up to speed on and what kind of leader you are naturally, or what kind of leader, at the end of the day, what kind of leader you are naturally. Because I don't know that you can change your like natural instinct overnight. And of course, like what kind of leader the organization actually needs and what they get is where either growth will happen or it won't. Like team will either be supported or they won't. My default is like deep, deep, deep understanding by just meeting the customers.
Yeah.
And so like, even when we join an organization, like if we're not going to meet the customers directly, then I'm like, give me access to every single call recording that you've done over the past month. Let me walk through every single contract. I want to literally understand the terms and like what got us to that point. Show me like the email threads. Like, let me talk to customer support to understand whether or not this customer is actually getting what they want. Because what I'm trying to distill is like, how consistent and repeatable is the organization already at understanding what they are delivering to their customers? And am I, with fresh eyes, especially like 30, 45 days in, able to get to those patterns really, really quickly? And I don't think there's any better way to do that than just literally meeting the customers or watching the sales processes from start to finish, which I don't know that a lot of people will do because they think like, oh, I'll get into the CRM and start building the reports. And then the numbers will tell me the story. The numbers are going to tell you whatever story you want. The more interesting story is going to be the one that comes from the people who are on your team, who hopefully will tell you honesty uphill, which rarely travels fast uphill.
That's right.
Or from the customers who will just frankly tell you because they have zero skin in the game other than being honest with you about what their experience is, having not paid you money.
Right. I imagine it's a lot easier these days because there's so much that's recorded. There's so many notes. There's so many AI note takers and call recordings. So if you're not really taking advantage of that, you're really missing out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think if you're not forming an opinion as a revenue leader on like what the right couple of tools are that you want your customer facing folks using all the time. Most people accept Salesforce and HubSpot as like the status quo for CRM, but very rarely do you actually see one of those that's set up with all the notes and all the instrumentation done perfectly. If you can have like a sort of default record status within your company and be comfortable with that, I think you're going to actually have significantly more context to draw on as you then go to look to manipulate that data and glean insight from it, particularly in this like AI LLM world that we are now like iterating on and experiencing week to week.
Yeah, it's definitely been disruptive, right? I mean, this is a brave new world that we find ourselves in. I mean, Matt was just saying we've been around for about 30 years each, and we both started out with a startup at the turn of the last century. And what we're seeing happening in the market today is very, very different. But it is interesting that the more things change with respect to how people approach the solving of the problem. Right now, AI and data is the big focus for people trying to solve those problems. The problems really haven't changed, though, have they?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't either. So from that perspective, so like you've gone in, you've looked at an organization, you've taken that 30 to 45 days to try and get the lay of the land. What are some of the things that you commonly run into? Because Matt and I do similar types of things with our companies that we're assisting, and I'm just curious as to some of the things that you typically find yourself tasked with in order to try and get these people back on track.
It's a really good one, Kevin. I could pattern match this a bit because now 4 years of doing it, 70 plus companies, like ranging from founders just trying to get their first million to like $200 million plus organizations saying, hey, I'm the new revenue leader. I'm stuck. Team's stuck. I need some leverage. Help me come take a look at this thing. One of the areas that I consistently see a lot of inconsistency is messaging and positioning. So literally, how do we talk about what we do to our customers? And I think it's an area where it's about to get much better or much worse, depending on how you approach the problem as a company. And so at the end of the day, like a sales process is just a stream of human communications to another human. And those communications are influenced by like what you're learning or directly from that person or indirectly. And then the broader context. Are you competing? Are you replacing? Like, what is the thing that you're selling to them or they're buying from you? Fundamentally, that doesn't sound that complicated. Like, who's our customer and why do they love us? We actually mostly get like marketing jargon when we read this stuff. Like all of us have worked at companies where like the value prop is actually the same. Like we built a product to improve the efficiency of your team so that you could drive greater outcomes at a greater ROI. I'm like, congrats. That's literally every software company that has ever existed. That's what they should do.
Yeah.
And I think part of this is like, one, it's actually really, really hard to do creative writing, like to the point, low jargon, great communication writing, like Ernest Hemingway level. Like that's what it is. That's the facts, but it's delivered in a way that it's interesting. And so I think like in this AI world where we're going to be like able to look at lots of different language, which is ultimately what makes AI very good, LLMs very good at what they do, there's an opportunity to think about solving that problem, which is ultimately then like the choke point where most human communication falls down. Like, I just don't understand what you're selling to me. I don't understand what the value prop is. I don't understand how I can regurgitate this to my boss, which is going to be a big problem if you're selling somebody a $2 million ACV piece of software that's, or API hookup that's going to help them improve some huge process at their enterprise.
Well, I think that comes down to a very fundamental step, right? That, you're talking about how marketing has a tendency to bring their jargon to the table. And a lot of times you see both between special finessed language in their industry or things that have organically grown up inside of that organization that are germane to the product and the way that they like to talk about it internally.
Yeah.
You see a lot of that happening. And one of the counterpoints I see a lot of, we try and teach folks, and you and I had a brief conversation about this as well, storytelling.
Totally.
That ability to take what is specialized language and break it down to being more kind of universal. How have you been approaching that? And is that a common thing that you end up seeing when you go out and talk to some of these folks?
Yeah. Storytelling is like as old as time. Like people have been telling stories for years. It's like an amazing way for people to convey complex thoughts to each other. Shared story. And I think of a sales process as like as a narrative. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then within that narrative, there's different chapters. Like maybe that's an email, maybe it's a meeting, maybe it's a text, maybe it's a dinner. And so then within each of those chapters, it's like, what's the story that's connecting the tissue between all of these different things? And
right.
Some folks will say like, well, that's like our vision, our North Star. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that for like the true experts who are able to communicate this way. But if you can move beyond a space where you're just delivering FAQs or battle cards or one sheets to your salespeople, but more so like getting them on board with a shared story and vision for why you're going after the big problem you're going after and why even, at the moment that they're doing it, it's early innings and like you're just getting going on it. I think those people will be able to convey a similar type of enthusiasm to your customers, to your prospects. And hopefully that matches up.
So the concept of customer centricity, which you were just talking about a few moments ago, is that one of the things you'd be looking to leverage with an organization like that to try and combat that more insular language and breadth of messaging?
Yeah, I would say so. I think the two components are like what's happening in the customer's like day-to-day world, like specifically for them. And then what's macro happening in the broader world. So like what are the headwinds and tailwinds that are impacting that individual trying to do that job? So like let's say you're building something in like the advertising technology world and maybe you sell to like a publisher, maybe you sell to an ad tech company, like you sell to another tech company, maybe you sell to an agency, like somebody who sells, buys advertising. Maybe you sell to the brand, the person who like actually gives the budget to the agency to then go facilitate finding customers. Your story as a technology provider or as like some element of that supply chain will be where you either resonate with that person that you're selling to, like that little fiefdom, if you're just selling to like one type of person at an agency. But if you're selling to all of them, you have to understand like the macro headwinds and tailwinds that you see differently than everybody else. And that
Mm,
because you see those things, that's why you're making the product strategy and tech strategy decisions that you're making to be ready to support them. And that's where like story and understanding of market meets road, the actual conversation on whether or not that person believes you. And then
mm.
says, wow, you've given a name or a story or a theme to something that I've felt, but I haven't fully understood. That's how I think about story, like just using maybe an ad tech, MarTech experience.
Yeah, I think storytelling, and also it's what connects people together, right? And ultimately, you're not selling technology; you're selling a solution that's going to help people do things better, right? And
Yeah.
that's always been my focus, and I think what we need to connect things to. I'm just curious from your experience and with all the companies you worked with, what are some of the challenges when they're trying to scale? Because I know both Kevin and I have been in the, I don't say startup, but early stage, high growth companies a lot. And we've seen a lot of the pitfalls that happen. But from your perspective, are there differences? Obviously, there's differences from, a founder just trying to get to his first couple million, from a company at 10 million trying to get to 100. But what are some of the things that are challenging for those people?
Uh, there's so many things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like so easy to say and so hard to do. Like,
Mm,
we all see like the talking heads on LinkedIn, like, hey, it's just one thing that you need to do and then you'll be solved. Like, until you actually build a company, you don't realize it's just like problem after problem after problem. So then, like, from the outside, even for us, like when we work with a company that's trying to do growth, it's like never going to be one thing that we can help you with. It's really going to be more like, how do we make sure you don't accidentally nerf yourself and do something that's totally avoidable? So, like, one of the things is just like getting caught up in the enthusiasm to just spend your money too quickly.
mm,
Like, let's say you raise your growth round. Congrats. Like, you just sold a big portion of your company to people who now like want you to go work and make that happen. If you just go hire like 5, 10, 15 salespeople and you haven't actually like validated to a point of conviction, like I know who I want these people going after and selling to and why, there is basically zero universes where that group of people will then go begin to go do the product marketing TAM, SAM research to then
Mm.
go make good on the comp plans and the goals that they need to hit your number. And so out of the gate, if you haven't gotten to a point where you're like, this is what's repeatable, this is what we're hoping we see as predictable because we'll teach it to other people, then a huge mistake is just spending the money too early by hiring too early. On paper, it will look great. We're hitting revenue milestone, we're hitting hiring milestones, the comp plans ladder up to our revenue growth milestones. We're managing the burn in our P&L, but that's coming out of the burn pocket, and it's
mm.
not necessarily going to influence the earned pocket. And so within that is like all the stuff that we were just starting to hit on right now. Like, how clear are you on who you sell to, what you sell to them, why they buy it, what you price it on, what steps you go through? Those are most consistently like the biggest reasons is like you're doing it too early. You're just doing it far, far, far too early.
Understanding what that is obviously is one important thing, but then being able to then convey that and communicate that to your sales team is another, right? And making sure that you arm them appropriately.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen several times also the influx of money and funding, all the rounds, right? Is just you get more money, more money, more money, and there's more pressure to deliver faster than maybe you would organically, right? I've seen it a lot. You go in there like, okay, we just raised this money. Look at these other companies that went public then. Look how they scaled. We're going to scale the same way. We got to hire to that plant, right?
Yeah.
You get caught up in this thing where you're burning money like crazy.
Yeah.
You have unfocused sales teams that are just going out there all over the place. So
Yeah.
that's also been a challenge.
I have yet to like see one of those companies. Like I've seen them play out. Like I won't name them right now, but just in the past 5 years, like they're all talking about how much success they're having. I'm like, if you're having so much success, like why are you talking about it so much? Like, why don't you just be quietly having success? Like, why would you want to warrant focus on you from competitors to be like, oh, they're telling us where they're being successful? Like, if you're having a really good time, like maybe just keep it to yourself and very quietly keep doing that. I've never seen one that does that, that then results in like that strategy being validated. which I think like the most likely scenario is that there's just a lot of people who are running companies who aren't confident enough in their own strategic ability to say no to outside pressure that's like, hey, well, everybody else is doing it, so you do it. Or like, it's your company. Like, be the founder, be the leader, like stand up for what you want to do and like don't act on the plan until you feel confident about it. But I don't know. I don't know that like everybody thinks that way. But I'm on the lookout for that when we start working for folks, because it's like, if you can't be that, then no amount of like sales coaching and strategy and day-to-day tactics that we give you is going to manage the existential risk, which is that you aren't growing fast enough as a leader to make like very, very important decisions that like just that small little nuance of assigning the budget out to your team is going to result in you then burning all of that capital that you spent all that time and effort going to raise.
So you're bringing up a really interesting question here, Peter, because we've had several people coming on to the show already who've kind of shared aspects of what you just described. And I'm curious your thoughts on this one. Do you think that behavior about literally leaning out too far over the ends of your skis, I mean, there's always been an element of that in business. But do you feel that that's becoming more commonplace these days? And if so, what do you think's driving it? Or do you think it's the same?
I think it's the same. I think like it gets accelerated when there's more like capital, like when more
Mm-hmm.
people are getting funded, then there's just like more excuses to talk about your funding and then go spend it. And especially if you have like not a super respectful perspective on like that capital, then you won't actually think about it as your own, like be a good fiduciary. So I think it just tends to like echo up when there's more money.
Mm-hmm.
I think now is actually like going to be an interesting time just for investors in general, because if the cost of building has gone down dramatically and like people who have an idea can start to bring it together, people who have like friends from previous jobs can start to hack together MVPs that historically would cost them well over $1 million. They can now do for like, couple $100 in API credits from OpenAI, a VO license, and like, Cursor. Well, like
Mm-hmm.
that's actually a much bigger problem for like the seed and A stage firms. And
Totally.
it's going to make it even more important that they're good at identifying like what makes a great CEO. And like, to me, like that probably hasn't changed dramatically. Like what makes a great CEO, like a great leader, a great communicator, a great salesperson, resource allocator. So I don't know that it's going to like increase or decrease or that it's changed that much, just that it's become kind of into focus as like we've gone through some of these paradigm shifts.
Yeah, I see it like if you're a founder and you know tech and you've come up with a great idea, doesn't necessarily mean you know how to run a company. It's like I have a fine art degree, and that was always the challenge of being an artist. I could be a great artist. I have no idea how to market. That's not really my forte, right? And so same thing with founders. Some of them have a knack for it. I'm wondering if AI makes it a little bit easier about how to get direction to some of the areas that you don't know about. But how often do you see a founder being able to partner, I guess, with more of a revenue leader or marketer or things like that effectively? And when should they bring those people in?
I think it depends. It like depends on what the needs of your company are. Like if your company's going to require a lot of outbound marketing
Mm,
because like you're reaching an audience that is maybe like particularly for like SMB and mid-market SaaS, like you're not reaching the CEOs of Fortune 100s, like you're reaching day-to-day users who have like line item budgets to go try tooling. Then you probably have to get really good at marketing and storytelling faster because you're going to be doing like a broad effort to go build pipeline. If you are like in very niche enterprise SaaS, or like you're building a product that like starts in like a niche use case and then will grow, you probably want to be like much better at customer support and project management and making sure that those customers have an awesome experience, because like voice of customer will be your primary driver for marketing. Like I don't know that SEO is going to be what sells your like $2 million SaaS
right.
product in the first like 5 years of your inception. It's going to be like the CMO or the CEO of the company who paid you, talking to all their friends that they used to work for and saying, you got to check these guys out. Like they changed my life in terms of what they're doing for our team. So I say the caveat is it depends, but I don't know that in any B2B SaaS company, like the CEO can't be good at selling. I feel like that's the like last thing that they ever give away. So like you have to learn how to sell your product, because that's literally like the end of the day, like that revenue number sits with you. You can have a revenue partner to get you like operational leverage, but if you don't have a standard on what you expect, then are you going to like let the standard get set by the person who reports to you? That's like a really weird power dynamic, I think, that is probably not like long for success. And then what if they leave? Like you own 40, 50% of the company, they own 2%, maybe at best. Well, what happens when the 2% vests? Like you give them another 2%. What happens when they realize like, oh, I can go start my own thing? Like now they're walking out as like the de facto visionary for your revenue org. Like that's going to leave you in a tough spot. So I think you just should like not ever get that to that place to begin with. Like just become that yourself.
So that brings up another thought I was having. I was trying to kind of think about how to articulate it here. So you've got this focus on how people are spending the money is becoming more prevalent in the industry right now. But the mistakes are sometimes still the same, where they're executing on doing those hires before they've got the right elements underneath it to go out and actually be trying to accelerate the organization in the marketplace. Have you got any real world examples of like some companies that have done that? And how can those be a cautionary tale to organizations that might be listening so they can watch and ask themselves, am I doing the same thing?
This is like one of those like so easy to say, so hard to do. Cause like in the moment, if you have to like go through a big pivot and get rid of your entire sales or go to market organization because you lost product market fit, it's not as easy as just saying like, great, turn off the LinkedIn ads. Like we're just not going to spend that. Like these are people you've been building with and assembling and selling vision to. And so it's very easy to say, just reduce the size of your headcount. Very hard to do. These are human beings that you've been spending time with. So the cautionary tale is like people who've had to do that, like maybe try not to get to that spot because like all of that hiring is not worth like the pain of the firing and the letting go. But we saw this a bunch early on. Like, I don't know if it was enthusiasm from the funds or what. I won't name exact companies, but just this like fervor because there was short-term success, like, hey, we're hitting our bookings number month to month, quarter to quarter, that they should start making hiring decisions that were more indicative of like estimated long-term retention. And like, if you then are in a market where you start churning, like, whoa, like you got to slow down your hiring plan because you're about to have
Right.
effectively a standing army to support a company where like your sales efficiency is not good. I'll say that like the folks that weren't being honest with themselves about retention and love, like customer love, they were the ones that were getting smacked the hardest. And we're just like not getting ahead of the problem, which was like the thing you're building, people don't love and want. And that's like fundamentally where you have to be focused because that's why they will end up paying you and retaining with you. No amount of like contractual mechanics will get around that. I think we're actually seeing that play out right now. I know there's like a bunch of drama that just happened with 11X. Like they sold this whole dream publicly on like, it's your outsourced SDR, BDR. They like listed a bunch of brands on the website and like, turns out like a bunch of them, they never worked with them. So like, all right, that's not good. I didn't work with them directly. So I'm just talking about like what I've read on TechCrunch and like heard, selling the vision of like, oh, we've sold all these customers. Like, well, if you sold like a 3-month free contract and then like it terms, like that's not great. So I won't call them out specifically. There's like so many others who do this and get away with it. But I think at the end of the day, like build something that the numbers like support people are retaining and loving. Your product team is close to that, hopefully. Like they're building stuff that people want. And then you're building a sales team to then go do that repeatedly and predictably at a better margin. So if it happens, like it's probably because like any confluence of those things was happening.
Do you think that there seems to be a bit of a trend in the market right now where instead of going in and investing in that big buy for the big team, right, that there's more of a focus on strategically hiring things like fractional resources or outsourcing to shops like yours and ours relative to dipping your toe in the water, growing as you need? What do you think about that? Do you see that as a trend in the industry? And what are your thoughts on that if you see it?
I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this too. But like, if you're able to work with customers to a point to like get them an outcome that historically you'd have to do through like 1 to several training, you can now like use tooling and systems to do much better. Then I don't know like why as a business you wouldn't like spend more time with fractional. Like I would.
Yeah.
Like if I like our content marketer does a fantastic job, Marty at Influence Podium, who introduced us, and he's a fractional content marketer, and like he's able to make it work with his system. I wouldn't call him a consultant. Like he does work for us. What we do, like we literally write the emails, like we write the scripts, we work on the positioning for the customers. You could pay like somebody 250 grand a year base to work 40 hours a week hypothetically for you to go do those things, or like hire a fractional group like us and like we'll get you to the same outcome from like an order of magnitude lower cost. Probably a better outcome too, actually, not the same. So I would say the same thing for you guys. It's like, I'm curious, like if your experience has been that too, that there seems to be more of a demand for it as there's like talent out there that just wants to work that way and can tool that way.
Yeah,
Definitely.
we definitely have, especially around our service offering is a little unique in that it's more around, sales engineering, solution consulting,
Yeah.
which is a critical aspect of any software company. You have to
Yeah.
demo the product, right?
Yeah.
And typically early stage, it's the founder doing it, right? Or maybe a product person.
Yeah.
But it lacks a lot of the polish and the storytelling. It's all feature dump, right? And it's very in the weeds,
Yeah.
right? But hiring a whole team to develop that and do that, maybe they're not quite there. And
Yeah.
again, it's such a key hire. You hire the wrong SE leader, it's a lot of money. It takes a long time to ramp, and then it takes a long time to get off of that. And you don't have that time now,
Totally.
right? So we're seeing that as something that people are leaning more into. Sometimes we still have to convince people though that this is a critical aspect of the sales motion for your product, right?
Yeah.
You have to transfer the ownership. You have to allow them to see the product and understand how it's going to help them,
Yeah.
right? And if you're leaving it up to them to make those connections, you're leaving a lot on the table. So that's one thing we see. And sales enablement too, I think is something as well. Same thing. To build out a whole sales enablement team, it's a lot of resources and a lot of people. But if you hire a fractional for that, it's a way to make sure that messaging that you've curated and and arrived upon that works, getting that to your field team so that they can actually go out and sell.
Yeah. Yeah. I maybe you guys could opine on this a little bit because I think it'll help us like dig in actually on that theme right there. Like some of the
Mm.
work that we do and what we see, and then some of what you all see. You said that building out the sales enablement team is, I think I'll paraphrase, but like expensive. It's a lot of people. My first question would be, why do you need a lot of people? Like, what are the things those people are going to do? Are they scheduling meetings to do like one to several kickoffs? Are they writing content? Are they maintaining content? Are they writing like onboarding trainings in like, Lessonly or Seismic or wherever? Are they like available on Slack to support sales? Like, what are they doing that like means that we need a lot of them? And this is where I'm thinking about this for everything, like marketing, customer support, engineering, product, sales. If the answer is like, well, we needed it a lot, but it turns out actually like Calendly can handle a lot of that, or just like a really well-tuned GPT can handle a lot of that for at least our needs today, then like, hey, like maybe actually just go hire a fractional group like SSO and they'll get you exactly what you need. Like right now, they'll get you 99% of the way there for 10% of the cost. And I think that's going to probably wash out a lot of like weird old SaaS and like jobs that just, people have grown accustomed to doing and like maybe they haven't grown themselves in. But I don't think that's a bad thing. That just means like
Mm.
there's less echo in the room when you, instead of having like 15 people on the middle management layer team, like you have 5. Like 5 people making and working a decision is very different than 15. And if fractional can help you get to that point, like that's amazing too.
No, I agree, Peter. I think you're kind of singing our song here with respect to what Matt and I feel on this as well. Because particularly as an organization is in that tipping point, they're ready to go big. But are they ready to go big? Really? Right? And there's a lot of false steps that take place. There's a lot of ready, fire, aim that happens, even with the organizations that after they've done their due diligence, they think they're ready to fire. They're ready to pull the trigger on it. But if you go with an organization like yours or an organization like ours, and there's millions of them out there, it's not like we're calling this is not meant to be a commercial for our respective companies, but it's that whole ability to where you've got folks that know what works, knows what doesn't, and they can look at you critically by being on the outside looking in, right, at you guys, or they can provide a fresh perspective. And you mentioned that earlier on. It reduces the risk.
Yeah.
Right? And it also improves tactical agility, the ability to find a problem or an area that needs to be adjusted and then act on it faster. It just scales so much better.
Yeah.
So from those two perspectives, I think that, I couldn't agree with your analysis of this more, quite frankly.
I think something you said in there is really important, which is like see it and act on it. or you said ready, aim, fire, ready, aim, fire. I think most folks who like move too quickly just do fire, aim, ready. Like, oh wait, I missed. Like, why? It's like, well, you didn't aim. That's a good one. But if you know how to do stuff, like you actually work, like you are at your heart an individual contributor. Now, like during like a hiring, assessment, years in the future, though, somebody would say, well, you're too tactical, like to be a VP or a CRO. Like, how do you like zoom out on the strategy? Zooming out on strategy is actually really hard to do. And if the people who like can only zoom out on strategy are never able to get tactical, like fractional will never be for them. Because like
Right.
fractional only works if you actually know how to pick up a shovel and dig, or you actually know how to assess a problem and do a solution. If your default is to say like, well, like, let's like talk about it and like understand the 50,000, it's like, whoa, this is not a strategic exercise. This is like, we're triaging a battle wound. Like,
Exactly.
get it as good as possible, move on. Progress is the mantra, not perfection. And I think that that's like, I kind of feel like we're going to see a new class of company continue to emerge, like with all of these like solopreneur opportunities that AI is enabling, potentially even like an entire tech layer that supports those types of companies, like folks that aren't going to build it. Like we're building it, but there might be people who can do that, but won't build it. Well, like,
Mm-hmm.
what if you have like an opinionated platform that helps fractional folks do their job? Maybe that's like what SSO is doing right now for sales enablement. Then that's incredible. Like then you get people who are actually good tactically at sales enablement, be able to go do that for 10 companies at once, bringing best in breed, like first principles, outside thinking. It's a lot different than like somebody who's only good at strategy who can tell you what your problem is, but like never how to fix it and then actually fixing it.
Yeah, there used to be an old commercial back in the 90s where I think it was actually a Bud Light commercial of all things, where there was two guys in a room talking to this sports guy that wanted to start his own company, and they paint this elaborate plan to
Yeah.
build a multi-million-dollar company. And he's like, "Great, let's go do it." And they
Yeah.
look at him and they blink and they're like, "Do it?
Do it. What do
We
you mean
don't
do
do
it?
it."
Do it. Do work? Like, no. I have zero patience for people who don't do work. That's probably going to be a huge limiting factor for me in my life. But like, frankly, like I think you either build things or you sell things. This is something I was taught really early in
No,
life.
I'm with you.
Those are the
Yeah.
two keys.
There are a few people that've got the skill sets to be able to do both, but they are few and far between.
Yeah.
I
Don't get me
do
wrong. Yeah, you could do both. But like I think that like those are the things to do though.
exactly. No, I'm with you 100% on that front. We have to be careful here because you and I could go out into this one. We could be talking about this for hours, quite frankly. But we do need to start bringing our episode to a close. So I wanted to ask, with
Yeah.
respect to the things we've been talking about here, what are you and Baku working on right now that you maybe want to, like highlight relative to some of the things we've been talking about here today?
When we founded Baku, like AI, OpenAI and ChatGPT did not exist publicly on the level that it is today. It was around as a company. Like transformers were around, people were playing with them, building neural nets, but there wasn't like customer facing tooling that you could go use. And so like we've been able to like iterate and grow our consultancy, like basically like purpose built as like an AI consultancy, not consulting on AI as a company, but a consultancy that is built from the bottom up, ready to leverage best in breed AI tools to do our job. Meaning we could bring the
Nice.
cost down for our customers. Like if I could do my job faster, that means the cost goes down for my customers because my margin gets better and they should benefit from that long term. Right. Like that's
Definitely.
first and foremost the whole thing. And what I would say about like what we're doing is I just heard an interview on Lenny's with like the CPO of OpenAI. And he said like effectively like what AI is trying to do is like make life easier and simpler for the people who use it. And I think that actually aligns like pretty closely to like what our vision is for our fractional consultancy and like the products that we'll build is like, does it make life simpler? And if there's one thing I know about sales and sales training and becoming a salesperson is there's basically zero barrier of entry to get going into it. Think like any sales industry, car sales, real estate, like doing any sort of like phone dialing, like it's so easy to get in. To excel at it is very hard though. And
Yeah.
to be like truly excelling at it to the point that the customers don't even feel that they're getting sold to is like the masterclass level. And what I would like to see is like our company able to achieve like that master level of human communication very fast for the customers that we work with so that they can focus less on selling and focus more on just having really great communication that's repeatable with their prospects and customers to the point that then they're able to scale the company. So I don't even know, like, you can call it selling because at the end of that, there's a transaction. But like, I just want to keep building like a really great company that focuses on helping people learn how to communicate better.
So with you on that one, the phrase that I always like to use is I don't sell software, I fix problems.
Love that.
That's always, and if you're the kind of person that gets excited about that,
Love that.
you're going to have a great career. You're going to have a wonderful time as you're doing it. Peter, if people want to reach out to you or learn more about Baku and that ability for you to help them and take them to that level, how can they reach out and find you guys?
Yeah, you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. So just Peter Kuhn Baku, you'll find me on LinkedIn. You can email me, pete@projectbaku.com. If you go to the website and you put in a lead, you're going to get an email back from me. It's not automated. You're just going to get it right back from me because we like to talk to the customers who reach out. But yeah, reach out. We'd love to talk to folks.
We're going to put all that stuff in the description and information about the episode. So if anybody wants to click on it and reach out to you, they'll be able to do that super easy. Peter, I really appreciate you coming on. I wish we could take like another hour to be able to talk through more of these things because we're so like-minded. And I really appreciate your philosophy on how you're looking at these things. Know your customers, know their problems, know what your solution does to make it work, and then plan on how you're going to do that. Take the time to understand how you're going to go do it. And if you don't know, don't be afraid to reach out and find people that do. I think that's a brilliant strategy that I can endorse wholeheartedly. So thank you so much for coming on, sir.
I love it, Kevin.
Matt, thank you again for coming on and spending another afternoon with me where I'm out there on the wonderful island of Hawaii. But thanks for coming in as well, sir.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Peter, really nice to meet you. Great conversation.
Great to spend time with both of you and hopefully part 2 at some point.
I definitely would love to have that and consider that invitation open. And we'd love to have you back out here again. And ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you guys got as much out of today's episode as we did. Leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. If there's other things you'd like us to discuss, if there's questions we didn't ask Peter that we should have, let us know in the comments as well. Like, follow, subscribe. And if you want to follow along with the philosophy that you keep hearing Matt and I talk about, you can go up to the website, buy a copy of our book, which describes the MOVE framework. You'll find some echoes of the stuff that was talked about today right inside that book as well. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming in. We're looking forward to seeing you next week. Take care.